Listen,
part Chinese.
we're not gonna do that right here.
Yeah, not
It's a
part
bit
Chinese
political.
We tend to avoid.
Is this the kind of podcast that avoids political things?
Yes.
Dude, do you want to get employed or
Do you want to live?
Do you want to
you
disappear?
want to get cancelled?
The CCP cancelled my life.
Oh my god.
Dear Song Woo, this is the CCP. Your subscription to life has been cancelled. Goodbye.
Your subscription to life.
Who's the host? Who's
Okay.
asking the questions?
Well,
Yeah, indeed.
I'm the host. Me and
Kevin
Adrian's like
and
co-host,
I.
but it's whatever. So yeah. Hey guys, this is episode what is it? I think it's
5.
episode 5.
2,446.
Is that episode? Episode 5, and today's topic is gonna be like simulation and reality. I'm trying out a new format, so don't flame me if it's not good. I don't know. It's whatever. All right. So I don't know. My first question is like, I guess, would you knowingly choose to live in a simulation over the real world? Like, so for example, if like you obviously know that it's a simulation, but for example, if you're like in the Matrix, you chose to put on like the thing that connects to your head, then you're like in a simulation, right? Would you choose to live in a simulation as opposed to real life?
I don't know. That question has a few assumptions on its own. First of all, what's real life, and what's the difference between real life and a simulation?
Yeah, what is the difference? I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
important.
No, that's the question.
Yeah,
that is another
definitely.
question that I raised with Kevin, which we'll go to. But I mean, I think one of the main things
But,
we
like-
should be asking ourselves is like, why would we want to go to a simulation, right?
Yeah, what benefits would you have? Like, I don't know what there
Like,
is to select.
Imagine like it's sort of your like perfect life or whatever.
So if it's a
don't know,
utopia,
like-
then like a
And
No,
obviously,
not
who
a
wouldn't?
yeah, not a utopia, but like I don't know. I guess you decide the specifications, so it's like a program thing. I'm not sure.
I mean, in that case, I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to be in a simulation. If
Yeah,
it
I
feels
mean,
like,
like-
because at the end of the day, you just want to have everything, right? You want to you want to have a perfect world, and
It's probably
hu-
the only thing I can. I think like the one thing I can think of is like the pride of not like cowering away from the real world. Sort of like you sort of posted out from like the harsh reality into like you know, a fantasy of your own. Sort of like, I don't know, what's the difference between, let's say, like a simulation like that and a person that's I don't know how you pronounce it, schizo.
Dude, the camera work
You
is
did,
gonna
huh?
be. You just made the job so hard for me.
You just
Carlos,
What have you done?
I don't know what I
Oh.
did, but it's back to normal.
Alright.
Okay, but what I was gonna say is like, talking about like this simulated reality, and like obviously some people just want to live a different life to like the things that they pussy out from, and a lot of people already do that through like social media. It's obviously not like a different, completely different world, but they project a different kind of person on like social media and stuff. So I don't see any like most people objecting to like simulated realities, shit like that.
I mean, again, there's an interesting thing. Actually, I'll come back to that for the recommendation section. The question here is: are we gonna like completely transform our lifestyle to that simulation, or is it something that you'll just like playing a video game, a means of escaping reality? Is it a means of escaping reality, or will that be the definition of reality from now on? So I think that's the main question here.
It all depends on how you put it, right? You could live as if that was your actual life, and I think that's the big appeal, right? Wherein it's indistinguishable from reality, but it's actually better than reality. So that's the sort of allure. But some people don't actually want to do that because they still prefer real life.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys know the Fermi paradox, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then I think one of the solutions put ahead for the Fermi's paradox was like that at one point, after a civilization reaches a certain level of technology, they just realize that there's no point living in the real world, and that they could just upload all their
Hmm.
consciousnesses into like virtual simulations, and that's why they don't need to expand physically,
Neuralink.
because they can all just live in simulated realities where they have everything they want and need.
That's true.
So
Elon
maybe
Musk
that
is-
is
but I
like
feel
the
like-
end goal.
Yeah, I feel like at that point we begin to lose some of the things that I don't know, like
You know,
begin
it's
to lose
actually
some-
this links to our previous topic that you wanted to discuss. What makes someone human? I mean, the question is consciousness on its own what defines us as human, or is there some physical traits that would? So, like, would we lose our humanity if we were to live in a simulation?
That's an interesting question.
I think
Yeah.
the capability to live in a simulation is a symbol of humanity on its own.
Okay.
True.
What do
I
you
guess
what do you mean by
every
that?
car depends on.
I mean, I think
Like-
that's just a matter of linguistics, no?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're defining human,
most
so
most things are a matter of linguistics. You know, there is this quote by Nietzsche. A lot of things are only a unity in words, but not unity in its essence.
Mhm.
Like, for example, like when you say the spirit as a whole entity rather than like I think of like a spirit as like multiple entities sort of battling and negotiating with each other, and to think of it as just like one. So there's sort of a convolution between like separate things, but just combining them into one word for the sake of abstraction. It brings up all this confusion regarding, you know, consciousness, humanity. But just
I
for the
see.
sake of the convo, you know, we'll just play along, I suppose.
So have we answered that question? Oh,
I mean,
I mean, none of these questions are like
volume as well.
completely answerable, right? Because there is no right or wrong answer.
yeah, but would you? So I guess the
I-
question here is like,
I think
would
we
you?
need to repeat the question again.
Yeah.
Would you choose? Would you knowingly choose to live in a simulation over the real world?
Depends on the reality and depends on the simulation, I guess. It's just
No,
personal
like I
choice.
said, right? No.
Yeah,
this, like right now, you're given a chance, right? Would you live in a simulation or not? Like right now, at this moment.
If it's
like,
Yeah.
you
better,
can choose the
Yes.
specifications of the simulation.
Okay, but like I think another question I would be kind of concerned about is definitely what is the difference between a simulation and real life? Like, will there be any like I mean like would I be able to will I be able to touch? Will I be able to have the same senses?
No, like yeah.
What are you
it's,
thinking
it's like a it's a simulation of real life. So obviously, like
Yeah, no. So I mean, but that's only assuming that we have reached that level of.
one of replacements.
no. Let's say we have, right?
VR.
Obviously, this question wouldn't exist if we haven't. So we have, and you're given the option to live in a simulation knowingly. Would you? choose
Yeah. I would. Yeah,
I would.
That's
yeah.
the question.
Yeah. Caleb.
Knowingly, yeah, for sure. Wait, we get to leave
I
the
probably
simulation whenever we want, right?
That's up to you. But would
But-
you? No. The
What
thing
if
is,
you
would
lose-
you live in that simulation or in the real world?
Well,
Like,
I
if
mean,
you had to choose one.
okay, so this question is about choice, and I guess this sort of
Yeah.
relates to our desires. And I guess
That is true.
the stimulus to like I don't know, let's say the goal of like choosing simulation over real life is, let's just call this emotion pleasure, an umbrella term for all positive emotions. Well, just how realistic is the simulation going to be? I mean,
No, I mean like it's a
I mean,
simulation of real life, but you decide you're able to change some of the specifications. Like for example, you have money or whatever.
I
mean,
think
that's like
another way of just saying this is like living in a different world or a parallel world. It's just like now, just like this exists, like this reality, but then it's just simulated.
And there's
I
Is,
don't
is that is that the conditions that we're sticking with? Like I
Like,
think
let's just say the simulation is good enough up to a point that it's very similar to real life.
Okay, yeah. So like, if you were to look at real life and a simulation, we should not be able to see any
Yeah,
immediate
almost
differences.
indistinguishable.
Yeah, it should be
Almost
okay. Okay. Yeah, in that case, yeah, I would live in it.
My answer would probably be the same as well.
I mean, wait, but if we had agency, wait, it's really weird because like, are we totally immersed in this simulation, or are we still? Wait, sorry, continue.
No, that's the
What do you
first
mean?
question I asked. Is it
So it's like the Matrix, dude.
so we're completely
plug it in,
living the
and then-
life?
Yeah. So you're like in another, but you can leave. But like, would you choose to leave or not? That's the question.
I think what this reminded me was
I
Ready
would
Player
just
One.
leave. I wouldn't live there forever, obviously.
Who knows?
No, but like
Maybe you're homeless.
if you had to choose between the two,
Maybe you're divorced.
I think it's
maybe your
difficult
wife
to say without
needs-
experiencing it myself.
that's probably right.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a thought experiment, so your answer is invalid.
Yeah, I suppose it's just like the trolley problem, right? In reality, you won't know what you'll do until you actually experience the situation.
True. I mean, like the entire topic of this episode, I guess, is are we living in a simulation, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's
So
just
if we-
simulation and the definition in of reality in general. It's not really like one single question. It's a broad topic. So I guess we can go into that question, like, are we living in a simulation? What do you think?
I mean, the question that we've just answered, would you choose to live in a simulation? If we all answer yes, then what's the point of exploring the second question? Because for us, then it wouldn't matter, no? If we
Well,
all
no,
would
the
choose
thing-
to
the thing
be
here
in a
is, like,
simulation,
The thing here is like we assume right now where we're living in is real life, right? And the point of the simulation is such that you're able to experience things or have things that you don't necessarily have in the real world, with the trade of it not really being the real world, because mentally you know it's not the real world, but if you know what I'm saying.
like a video game or simulation, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Like
sort
really
of
good
kind of
VR,
like real life.
basically.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
guys
it's not
watched
real,
Ready
but
Player
you can
One?
enjoy it. Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
That
that's
movie.
what I was thinking of.
That'll be interesting, you know. It would be fun. I think. I don't know why people would not choose to do that for like entertainment or whatever.
I see. I mean, it's even more prevalent now that we're in this epidemic, right?
True.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about whether we're living in a simulation or not?
I mean, I think we have to explore whether it's even possible to make a simulation, because I think as of right now, the chances of us being in a simulation are zero with our technology, right? Assuming that
Hmm,
I mean,
yeah, I think I know what you're
this-
saying.
but then as soon as we are able to make a completely immersive virtual reality which you can't tell apart from the real world, that chance goes from 0 to almost 100%, because if those simulated realities have realities within them, like the number of real worlds compared to like virtual realities,
Yeah.
I mean, I see
this-
where you're going with it, but like, if we're gonna be simulated, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be parallel to the real world time, right? It could be like an apocalyptic real world, and we're being simulated like years before or something like that. Like the technology that we're being simulated with could be far advanced than.
So you're
our
saying the
current-
time frames don't line up, right? So
I mean, that
even
it could be
more-
that.
Even bigger probability that we're in the
But
simulation.
I think the
simulation is
main
possible.
the main thing that we should be looking at when we're discussing stuff like this is like our actual definition of simulation with our current understanding and knowledge could be far beyond and different to the actual. Like, if this was a simulation, then obviously we don't know how simulations work because we haven't made any of our own. So it could be
No, we
much more
have made
different.
simulations, but not like to the degree.
Which we can
imitate.
live on our. If you know what I
real
mean, like I think you know exactly what I mean. Maybe I'm not phrasing it properly, but what I mean is that it could be much different to what we think of it being. So I mean, we could very well be in a simulation, but like, at what point will we know?
I think it's probably an untestable hypothesis. No.
No, that's what I'm saying. How can we
You
test
could never
if
answer
we're
it, sure,
because like
yeah.
we think we have consciousness because we think we're making like, you know, because we're thinking for ourselves. We're all different individuals, but at the same time, like, how do we not know that, you know, it's being controlled by something else? Like, we're actually living outside of this. How can we tell? It's not like we can leave the lobby.
What the hell are you talking about?
How do you define consciousness then?
Yeah,
Like
there's
very briefly,
Oh God.
without like springing off, I guess, because I mean, I guess if you want to talk about like free choice and stuff like that, if you put the exact same person in the exact same situation like 1,000 times, will they ever make a different choice? If it's like just like parallel realities and they don't know that it's an
I see.
experiment, I would think that the same thing happens every single time, because I don't believe
Yeah,
in
yeah.
randomness.
So you're talking about determinism versus free will, right? Or
Yeah.
determinism versus the quantum.
So I don't.
That's
I
actually-
think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really big question. I'm not sure what the answer is or whether we can actually prove it, because we still don't know like how on the small scale it can be sort of probabilistic but deterministic on the large scale. Even I don't know. Like, but
Yeah, I think in quantum physics, I feel like you might think that it's all completely random because of superposition, but I think because of quantum entanglement, like the possibility of quantum states become significantly reduced with, like, you know, big collection of.
oh, I see, because they're all somewhat connected to each other is what you're saying?
Yeah, dude, I swear, I'm not. Yeah, it's probably not accurate. But.
No, I kind of
no. There's a logic there.
But I think the whole deterministic between versus free will problem changes the dynamic of like the situation that we're discussing about simulations. Because if the world is deterministic, then what is the purpose of there being a simulation? Because I think a big question that we also have to ask is, why would, if there is like, we are living in a simulation and there is an outside world, why are the beings in that outside world finding it necessary to build a simulation?
Yeah,
There has to be
yeah,
a
I
purpose,
see. If
right?
it's
No, that's what I'm
deterministic,
saying.
then there's no point of a simulation, right?
Exactly.
exactly. And at what point and why would we need to have free will if this is all based on determinism? Is that a word? Determinism.
Yeah,
If it is.
determinism.
Yeah,
Determinism.
it
Yeah.
But the thing is, I find that even if everything's deterministic, like you still, like you won't reach the end by doing nothing. Even if the world is deterministic, you still need to live life. You still need to, you know,
But
be a passenger in whatever life.
But do you have the choice to do nothing or do anything at all?
Well, whatever you do is indeterminism ends
yeah.
up just being the.
Even if you do
the end
nothing, you're
result.
still doing something.
I guess so. I mean, like, I think that kind of bounces off like the definition, the simulated world, and like stuff like that. I remember like in my TOK essay I wrote about the Boltzmann brain. It's like this thought experiment where you think about the probability of this entire narrative of like the universe being created, the Earth being created, our solar system, life, and everything, all culminating to one situation where you're like on a video call talking about simulations and stuff. And you also talk about the probability of like mathematically with particles in a closed amount of space in a extremely long but finite amount of time, the particles will at one point go in such a way that they form like a human brain, right? So
Yeah.
you talk about whether what you're experiencing right now is really everything that's been built up like that with our narrative and how we understand our universe, or whether we're just living in a moment of what we perceive to be reality. All our memories and everything have just been made up randomly, and everything we
So
feel
are
like
you
we're knowing
saying,
is
like-
momentary.
So you're saying like whether the things that we have recorded to have happened actually happened or not, or whether it was just suddenly birthed out of existence.
Exactly, because I feel like if that hypothesis is like the kind of thing that we're living in, that would constitute a simulation.
I don't know why.
So like,
but-
how do you know, like, if you're not living in like a 5-minute loop that keeps on repeating forever? You can't know anything, so simulation.
But
Yeah.
even, I mean, I guess you could say that. But I mean, eventually, if you, okay, let's say like your life resets every second per se, but even at the end of infinity, you reach the next second. But within that second, you had no knowledge that you've been living over and over again for that particular second. So in that sense, it wouldn't matter, because your memory would still be continuous, even though, I guess, in your reality, your life has been repeated for over, I don't know, numerous times.
I suppose not. So what I think of sometimes is like, if reincarnation is real, does that mean because we have, because in reincarnation, every time you die, like you get reincarnated, but you lose all your past memories, right? So what I've been thinking of is it because we're aware of this, like this moment or this life that we're living is such that this is the last life that we will live in our reincarnation cycle, because our memories haven't been erased yet.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's something I think about.
We should stray away
you
from the
understand?
limitations of knowledge. I think it's pretty circular discussion, honestly.
Right
I mean,
now,
I myself mused about it. I mused about it for I don't know how many
Yeah.
bloody hours.
Yeah.
There's no end. I don't know. I wanted to bring up like Elon Musk and Neuralink. So like Neuralink is a thing about Elon Musk to do what he said, which is to plug in your consciousness to the computer,
Mhm.
and yeah, and you can have like save files, and you can relive past the memories. I heard him said that in like a Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh yeah. No, I do recall what you're saying. It was
What are your thoughts
it's
on
an
that?
interesting concept. No, I mean
Wouldn't
at
that
this
be
point,
cool to have, like, a
that is cool, and it's entirely based on choice. Again, you could just plug in your, if you like this moment, you could just go back and live it, because some people could argue that the value of a moment is that its only existence is limited.
It only exists once.
And that's the
Right.
that's the beauty, or that's the purpose of having a moment. But like that's just on our understanding. But I mean, I guess if you liked it so much, you could go back, but then it would ruin the meaning of memory
moment.
or of the moment, because like I mean, like if you go back, let's say like I like the moment of me getting a basketball shot, and I wanted to watch that again and again and relive that moment. At some point, we'll get like a bit bored and be like, you know what? Yeah, I've made that shot 500 times. It's kind of whack now.
Yeah, based on human standards, that'd probably be the case. That over time it just loses value. It's like, what is it called? The law of diminishing return.
No, I mean probably like you just get jaded. Like you,
Yeah.
like, you know how like married couples eventually get sick of each other.
Yeah, but then as soon as they get divorced,
What are
like
they
they
about?
can't.
Yeah.
They try, like maybe if there's a way to recreate the novelty that you experience when you relive that memory, so that would be probably like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that would mean that you have to forget everything and forget that it's a simulation
That's
to relive it properly, which is
Yeah.
exactly what we could be living in, and why a simulation that is created would make it so that you don't know you're in a simulation.
Yeah. Maybe that's
So is
the
it
point.
like you would reverse all your thoughts and your brain state back to the state they were at that exact moment? Would you have to do that to experience the same novelty?
It's like watching a movie for the first time, because you'd be like, oh damn, I want to watch this movie again from the first time. You know what I mean?
Without knowing how it goes. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a different thrill with that. the question here is, would Mirrorlink have that ability? Obviously, I don't know if it could, but like, it's a far stretch. Would it have the ability to relive that moment without knowing? You know, like it's as if we actually travel back to that specific time, so we do not know anything anything beyond that specific time. If you know what I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Then that would be a case of
the problem is like the accuracy of your memories itself, right? You don't even know the state which you were at that moment.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff is fabricated. Like, so we make up a few things. Like, if we can't remember something to be exact, generally what happens is we fill it up with some random stuff that we already know to try to fill out that blank area. That's generally how our memory works. Or you misplace information, which is generally why, like, it's at the tip of your tongue. You're trying to find something, but you can't really because you're just trying to find out where you placed. Anyway, I'm rambling into something else.
Is there any like scientific evidence that we can use to like discuss? Because everything that we've been discussing until now is kind of like hypothetical and like theoretical, right? Because there's no way we can test like whether we're in a simulation or not. There's no what's it called
medium.
again?
There's no medium.
Thing.
There's no what?
Like the spinny thing in Inception. The top. There's no spinning top like in Inception. If you're in a real world, it falls. We don't have that, so we can't like run an experiment. I remember one thing which was like really crazy to me. Like, you guys know that experiment where they like shoot like the two electrons to see if it like interferes like with the diffraction patterns and stuff. Did you learn that in physics, right?
Yeah.
But then, when you shoot when you shoot one electron through and you don't observe it directly, then you get a diffraction pattern, which means that the electron has to interfere with itself to create like the splitting pattern, right? But then when you observe the experiment closely and you watch the electron do it, it doesn't happen. So there's a condition for this experiment happening that whether there's an observer or not changes the result of like the experiment, which doesn't really make sense like in the physics that we know. And it kind of makes it seem like a coded thing, you know, like how in video games if you see stuff like it pops up, but if you're not there it doesn't happen.
Oh, so it's like when you turn around, like, does it load everything else and then like practically it doesn't exist right now?
I saw that as a meme somewhere. Like, is everything behind me actually there or not, or does it only exist when I turn back? Yeah, that was an interesting
I thought of like the exact same thing. It's like, it's like the video game has a bug. It's like saving processing power. Is it like
wait,
abstract?
what's the bug?
Exactly, that's happened to me before. Like, I swear to God, something's just like teleport or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, glitch.
Glitch in real life be like,
Of course, don't blame your own brain,
please
blame
fix.
reality itself.
Yeah, my brain is perfect. Can't be.
Oh, it's like when you lose something and you ask your mom, you said it's probably there. When you search for it, it's not. When she comes, it's there. I'm like, what? I searched there.
It can't be my fault. It's never my fault.
no, your
Surely
mom.
we have to-
Your mom is the one like controlling the settings of the simulation.
We have to question our entire existence before we question our own brains. It's never my fault.
Yeah.
That's what the creator of the simulations want us to think.
Yeah.
So, can we actually perceive reality directly? I mean, this is a question that we've asked ourselves, like, well, at least me and Caleb. I don't know about you guys, but
Is what you're living
Like, I don't
actually
think-
reality?
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think
always
so
that thing,
because
you know?
like there are certain inaccuracies that cause you to perceive things not as they actually are, right? So I don't think you can actually perceive reality directly as it is.
I mean, like,
Okay,
what
go
you
ahead.
see and feel is just an interpretation of reality.
What would it mean to observe reality directly? It would mean that
So-
reality exists in and of itself, and we're assuming that that is the case because we can only perceive reality, but we don't know if reality exists or not.
I
So-
see.
The question itself already assumes that reality exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
thought
that
it's
was my
probably a
assumption,
paradox, but I mean, it's an assumption that we have to make, given that.
We live by the assumption that reality in itself exists. No.
I mean, given how reliable reality is, I mean, the evidence is this video itself. If reality was buggy, then how can the program and how can the electronics be this consistent that we're able to see each other kilometers away?
Or maybe the fact that everything follows such like tight physical rules and like mathematical rules, 1 + 1 is always 2. Things always fall like down, like when there's gravity. Light's always at light speed. Maybe that's like more evidence to show
Well, there
that.
is no
But
doubt,
that's the
right?
question. I mean,
Yeah, because is a real world more dynamic or more structured than the one that we live in right now?
if you
Or is it the same?
if you think about it, it could be argued from a different perspective that mathematics and science is just an observation or perspective of humans, whereas in reality it could be just something entirely different. If you know where I'm getting at, like the way we understand what we're looking at is through science and through mathematics. That's our human observation, but I think what Kevin meant was direct reality, is that it could be something far larger, something that we cannot comprehend at this moment of time because it's something that we don't know how to understand, or we don't know how to see. Do you know what I'm saying? It kind of links back to what we discussed a few weeks ago, Kevin. With,
Well, I don't think that's exactly what I meant, but I know what you're getting at. Like the ceiling or limit to knowledge, whether
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
actually perceive what
so like
what the bigger
direct.
picture is.
Yeah.
Is there a ceiling to
Oh,
human
no.
knowledge?
Is there a limit to what humans can know? I think
Yeah.
there is.
I mean,
There's just-
obviously, as or else now we would have known everything, right?
I think
Not
the simple
necessarily. You
explanation
can't.
is that since there's a physical size limitation to our brains, unless we make our brains bigger and bigger and ever expanding, there's always going to be a limit related in proportion to the size.
Do you want to be like Megamind?
Yeah, just imagine your brain never
Dude.
stops growing.
No, but
It grows
do you need to
exponentially
have
with the
big
amount
brain?
of knowledge you have.
Do you need to have a big brain
Big
to have
brain.
to have more knowledge, though? Like,
I think. Well, I mean, I guess like physically, yes.
Physically,
like,
there is a limit, surely.
but like we have like I can't believe I'm saying this, but we also have to consider what constitutes to knowledge, right? Because like each individual, for
Bruh,
you,
come
knowledge could be
on.
something else. For
Bro,
me,
stop
is
right
it
there.
is it true?
Don't go there.
We're questioning the
Stop right
basics
there.
too much. We break down the entire purpose, because then again, like, we don't know
Yeah.
what knowledge is. What is the purpose of like even?
Questions like those.
No,
Some-
listen.
we
If
just
you
have to
keep
accept.
doing that, you literally can't answer anything.
Yeah, you can't answer anything.
Yeah, but can you answer anything?
There has for a statement to exist, there must be axioms to which you first derive. Well, not derive.
You have to
like,
have some
yeah.
agreed
you have to have
points
axioms,
of assumption.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think knowledge is safe to say no need to be discussed for now.
Actually, like at the beginning when we were like, at the beginning when you start thinking about like these existential things and having these crises, like you feel like your entire like fabric of existence is falling apart. For me now, like at this point, it doesn't really like bother me anymore. I guess like the fact that we don't know
It's like
much.
Then I guess
Yeah, I
to,
think
so,
who
to
gives a
some
shit?
extent you did come to a conclusion because you kind of made up a decision that
I'll just
mean, I
live
don't
the
think it's-
world which I can perceive in.
Yeah.
There's no point
That is
of me
true.
exploring things which I will never have the capacity to understand. So I'm just gonna try and like live with what I have.
I suggest you read The Brothers Karamazov before you even consider talking to me.
Oh my god, dude.
Read
on.
this specific piece of literature before you're qualified into the gates of
To
this
talk to me.
discussion.
Yeah,
Gatekeeping.
top number one fallacy. No, I see that shit all the time on YouTube and like intellectual talks. Like
You're not a real
like,
intellectual if you don't read this book.
What do you mean intellectual
there-
talks?
like I don't know.
Big brain
Jordan
talks, you
Peterson,
wouldn't get it. That's what he's
Yo.
saying.
Maybe like
It's fake.
Slavoj Zizek. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, it's like
Now
the
he's just
audience
saying
asked him
Jordan
a
was trying to
question.
confuse us.
Like the audience asked them a question and they say like, for the sake of brevity, I read this in a book and it has all the reasoning and you just have to read it and then you'll come to the same conclusion. And you're sort of like stuck there. And you can't really like answer it in a short amount of time. See, that's a problem with like discussion. If you don't have like a similar base of knowledge, there's no way that you can get to the same conclusion. It's like if you try to, you're just like missing the base and the building's just gonna topple.
It's like playing with noobs and
I
CS.
mean, that's why we have different perspectives, right? That's what,
Okay.
'cause they're
But
different
it's
bases
not
of knowledge.
necessarily that you would even amount to the same conclusion if you had the same knowledge base.
Yeah, because the knowledge base that you feel like you're building is not truly your own. You're reading other people's literature, so you're just ending up taking their take on it. So no matter, like, some people who haven't read that book might have a better take on it rather than somebody who's already been influenced by that kind of thinking.
But there are similarities in the way that humans learn and in the structure of our psyche. So in that sense, like it's not totally different, but you know there is a lot of similarity. Like for example,
Yeah.
And that's all state.
For example, Rip.
What happens
Maybe like,
You got
after we
anything?
die?
Come on, bro.
I actually don't have a good example, but
Okay.
And
What
your
happens
argument
after we
is
die? Who
invalid.
knows,
Thank you.
dude? Who
yeah,
knows?
no, I feel like I'm just like speaking bullshit because I don't have a good example.
You're a
Something
poser.
else.
It's okay. We can come back to you later.
Go back to you.
I
Like, do you want to structure it, or do you just want to let?
No,
the
I mean,
conversation flow?
there was actually a question that Kevin thought of, but I think that it's actually a very interesting one. Is why are simulations important, or why are they necessary?
Yeah, why does it matter, right? Does
Yeah.
it even matter if we're living a simulation if it's exactly the same
That's-
as living in the real world?
I mean, there's another way of we could just. I mean, we have simulations right now, which of course are not like the kind of we're talking about. Simulations like Kid gave an example before, but I think we have those because there's a certain level of like curiosity, and because of that, we're
think
basing our-
simulations sort of, well, they do exactly what the name entails, right? They simulate, and so that really simulations allow us to figure out things that we wouldn't necessarily be able to figure out on our own.
Mhm.
So sort of like simulating I don't know, like future events such that we're able to take action based on this information.
There was this quote from this famous philosopher called Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh,
Uh,
that's not a philosopher, but okay, dude.
it said like dreams end when reality starts, but then with simulation, dreams does not end when reality ends when dreams start.
You're just playing with words, dude.
No, but like
No.
what-
If think about it, I mean, I guess it kind of does.
like the permanence of the dream is now concrete if you can now live in a simulation like indefinitely.
No, but I guess like that's only if you consider the simulation as a form of a dream. Because there's a few things that when we dream we can't necessarily like for once I don't know how to I don't exactly know where I'm going with this, but like there's a distinct difference between dreams and when you wake up in the morning, right? And so I think what
What?
you have to consider
Am I still in a dream?
yeah. I mean that, and whether dreams are simulations or simulations are dream-like. If you know what I'm saying. Kind of.
True.
No,
I mean, I guess
I don't
you're talking
really,
about the
but-
differences between dreams and reality. So, and
Yeah,
we're talking
and
about
if
the
that
general
difference
purpose
is
of
exact,
simulation.
and if that difference is paralleled with reality and simulations.
So we were talking about like the purpose of like the simulated world being like a dream, right? So that would entail that the simulated world should be better than the world that is reality, because why would you want to make a world to experience that is worse
Yeah,
than
that
what
is
you already
true.
have?
Yeah.
But then if you have the technology to build a simulated world, why would you want to produce an imperfect world? Why don't you just make a completely perfect world? So
Because you
With that
are
point-
not all good. You know, we're actually
Well,
yes.
we're indirectly talking about religion, but okay.
yeah, I mean everything is, I guess, because if our reality is a simulation, then the gods are the people who control it in our interpretation.
I
guess.
see.
Yeah.
But I just want to put forth the argument that maybe it just makes it slightly less probable that we're living in a simulation, just because of the fact that our world is imperfect and not ideal and not a utopia. And I don't know if this is something that somebody would want to simulate. And I don't know what the
But
purpose would be to simulate
point
this
of-
world.
I would say
Well-
the point of civilization, the point of simulation is like, well, in essence, it is to simulate something, but I guess with the intent of learning or discovering something new. So perhaps such an advanced civilization would not, would not. For example, we've lost knowledge over time, right? So we don't know like the specifics of what happened millions of years ago. So it would be possible that such a higher power would want to simulate, iterations of a universe of such a universe from the beginning to see what, I don't know, or how things occur.
How would they know
Like,
the initial
maybe-
state?
I mean, I don't know. They're
If
higher
you know the
power.
initial
so-
state already, why would you need to simulate? I mean, like this could be just like an educational history simulator for coronavirus 2020, and like showing people what happened.
What's to
Who's
say
we,
that?
right?
I don't
Because
know,
what's
I don't
the point?
know.
Like,
wh-
The computer's just experiencing its own reality, I guess. Then will we ever be able to understand that we are simulated? Because can a computer understand its entirety of its own
Okay,
processing
recording's
power with the limitations of its own processing power only?
Things
Is there
that never
some
had.
meaning to life?
Well, that's an entirely different question.
no,
Meaning
there
and
isn't.
an emotion.
Well,
Objectively.
objectively there isn't. Subjectively there is.
Objectively, meaning is a set of chemicals in your brain. 1950s. I don't know, mid 1900s, I think. Russian
There's research on that?
neuroscientist named some guy discovered
Some
that
guy.
the general feeling of emotion is linked to like a series of a really consistent series of like brain waves,
Mhm.
and it's called the orienting reflex. That's probably evolutionary motivated as well.
Mhm.
So I'd say
What,
that meaning
meaning?
is an emotion. Yeah, meaning.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Would boredom be the opposite of
Catalyst?
meaning? Is it a catalyst or the opposite?
Maybe it's
Like,
the
what do you
lack
think?
of it.
Because boredom is definitely an emotion. I would think so myself, and it's the source of human innovation, right? Because if nobody was bored, then who would ever build or think of new things? No.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there are motives as well, like some motive. But I mean, one of the main causes for innovation is definitely boredom. I would agree with Kevin on that.
Well, I think that like boredom, I think you can think of it as a scale. Like boredom on one hand, and on the other hand is like something meaningful and engaging, I suppose. That's
Socialization.
Yeah, that's what I think. Like, bored. I guess there's a clear reason on why boredom exists is to push human innovation. So in a sense, maybe nowadays we have a lack of it because when people experience such a thing, they just, they get on their phone or whatever, play video games like we do, and then no innovation. So I guess maybe there's a lack of it, question mark?
Damn, social commentary from Kevin.
Social commentary.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about before Adrian rudely interrupted us?
I actually don't remember.
I think I was about to go off on a tangent on something, but I don't know what it was anymore.
We tend to avoid.
Is this the kind of podcast that avoids political things?
Yes.
Dude, do you want to get employed or
Do you want to live?
Do you want to disappear?
get cancelled?
The CCP cancelled my life.
Oh my god.
Dear Songwoo, this is the CCP. Your subscription to life has been cancelled. Goodbye.
Your subscription to life.
GG. Okay, let's talk about something.
Wait,
less
actually,
sensitive.
a question that actually brings a question that I would have. If we were to live in a simulation, straying away from religion, who do you think would be controlling? Would it be like an organization in control of these simulations? Would it be an individual, or how do you think this would be? Or will we all have our own kind of like individual simulation?
Me. I think the only answer to that is me. Because
come
for
on,
me,
dude.
from my perspective, I'm the only one that experiences anything.
Okay.
So, in my world, if this is a simulation, I am the player, and hence I am the only god.
Okay.
Wait, but what
if
if
I'm
what
living in a simulation, then I am the only proven link between this simulation and the outside world. Because the fact that I can experience a simulation means that I have to exist in the outside world. But for you, you can all just be complete simulations. So
I
for me,
kind of
proven-
understand what you're saying.
Oh, I get what he means.
But I don't know if that's exactly linked to
I am the only
simulation, so it's
proven
sort of
link
like
between the outside
Yeah.
world
It's as if
and
it's like a
yeah.
movie based on your life or something like that.
or
So
a
it's like,
simulation
is
that
it-
I'm like a single player
you-
game, you know?
Yeah.
Wait, that actually reminds me of what is that movie with Jim Carrey?
And your eyes.
Wait, John.
Dude,
Okay?
his mom.
Ay. Ay.
What is this, Mom?
Cut.
It's your future neck.
Do you have water?
Pokoknya nanti kamu diamerin.
I need water.
cut the
I need
recording.
water. I'm gonna get water.
Get it,
Very
get
quick.
it, get it.
For your
No, this is our extra special host, a guest today.
just drink.
Oh.
Malu-maluan.
Remove my earphone.
Dude, this is actually so messy. I've never had.
Belajar itu pokoknya your
It's
Yo.
a new experience, Kev. New experience.
not gampang sakit.
Yeah, Mom.
Perhaps
I
we
think
go back
this
to
is
the
one of those
old-
episodes where you can cut a lot from because we've been talking for well over an hour, right?
You know, one of the other movies that I thought about was the Truman
Yes,
Show,
yes.
which I think I mentioned in previous podcast.
Bro, come on. This isn't even
Oh yeah,
the
the
thing.
Truman
Yeah.
Show.
But I think that's what I meant by like if we were living in a simulation. His is basically a simulation, not the way that we think that everything is built up with ones and zeros, but to say that everything is just simulated in a manner that it's just a replica of real life. And I think that's what you meant by like if you were the main character, if you were Jim Carrey, you would have felt that everything is about me. It's because I'm the hero here. I'm the protagonist.
Well, I
But-
mean, like, basically, the only thing you know for sure is that you are aware of what you're aware. That's the only thing you know for sure, right?
Yeah.
Who said that again? I know, therefore I am. It was
I know,
René
therefore I
Descartes,
am.
right? Descartes. He said that in Latin or something.
Mm.
It's like the thing that I sometimes think about is like, am I the chosen one? Or it's not really like pride or whatever in like being the chosen. It's more of like because you're the only one who is aware
Has proof,
or you can
yeah.
be sure is aware. Are you like special in some way or not? If you know what I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
But
You
you
were
know
sent
another
here to
interesting
serve.
take on that is like that for like mental development and like until like 5-year-olds or something, that's like a really common thing for kids to do, is to think that the entire world rotates around them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that everything is existing only when they're around and stuff. So maybe the fact that we even think about stuff like that is like just a part of the way that your brain develops. Because
I
if
read
you were
this,
completely sure that this world was for you, you'd be selfish.
Yeah, John Piaget, I think it was Child Psychology. It's about developing a model of reality outside of your own ego.
Adrian, what the hell?
What?
I don't know what happened. It disconnected, automatically connected again. Kev, this is going to be a very interesting experience for you, I think.
Has this happened before? Is it just this episode everything's going wrong?
Only this episode.
This episode, everything's going wrong.
I think it's a new experience for all of us, you know. I mean, this could be the world. This could be the people behind the simulation telling us to stop because we're getting too close to the truth.
We're getting too close. It's like, have you watched The Good Place?
The Good Place, yeah.
No, I
And
haven't.
then like there's like this one guy who came like 95% close enough.
Yeah.
If you watch The Good Place, I think.
Yeah, and then they're like, this guy, we have his photo up in the wall.
Yeah, but
that Good Place. Show.
It's the show where there's like the demon and then he's like, oh, here's the trolley problem.
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah, that's the one. It's a good show. It's a good show.
Yeah, and then he was
like
like,
Community.
all right, he just put some random dude in like the trolley problem. All right, here's this and this. Here's what you, and he's like, what the? So that was pretty interesting, like the way they sort of portrayed the trolley problem, right?
Yeah, it was an interesting way of doing that. The show is pretty good. It's a good show that you should watch.
Noni.
Who's today's sponsor?
Today,
We're gonna cut this part right now, right? Because okay, so today's sponsor is Audible.com, and if you sign up for a 30-day free trial today, you get your first audiobook for free plus 2 Audible originals for free. And if you use the code Conversation with the Boys, you get 30% off any additional purchases. And this comes with easy changes and cancel anytime.
Then I might actually leave this in.
we
but
might
this is
actually have to get an Audible freaking
not a
Audible pay us now.
Audible pay us now. Let's go. We basically sponsored ourselves from you. We're doing you a favor.
That's not how it works. Okay, so
This
you know what's
video is
interesting?
sponsored by
Like,
Optic India.
we have Forsaken right there. Okay, so what's interesting is like you know about, is it like object permanence? I'm not sure. Or no, it
object,
isn't.
object permanence. No, like if but like what someone said, like John Piaget, it's supported by the studies done by John Piaget, so I can confirm.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring up another thing. That is, how do we know what we really want? Like, because what if like our own happiness that is provided by the simulation is going to be limited by our own creativity, whereas in the real world we don't have to be creative because we simply perceive the novelty that's all around us. But in this simulation, how can we?
Isn't that assuming that the simulation is based on our mind?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance here. I feel like this could be
Yeah.
another hour's worth of talk.
No, there's this thing in like child psychology where even though the water is the same amount, do you know, like they've done this experiment where even though the water is same amount, like if you move water from one glass to the other, if it's like wider, the water's gonna be lower level, right?
Yeah,
Despite it being the same amount, the child's gonna think that
there's less.
there's less water just because it's less. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's helping, you know. Because if you have
Yeah.
a smaller plate, then it looks like more food. Bigger plate looks like less food.
Yeah.
Or is it because you have less food on a bigger plate that it looks like it's less food than small plate and more food? Oh.
No, I mean like they've done an experiment on it. Like if the plate is relatively smaller, then it just looks like it's more food. 'Cause the
But what
plate
if you
looks more filled.
what if you always had little food and one day you get a little bit more, which is like normal food, and that is too much food for you?
What is this?
Does
you know
that
what I
even mean? Okay, no.
You know what I mean? Like you've always had a little amount of food, so that's normal to you. But then you go and have this normal amount of food that everyone else has, but that's too much. It's because what you've been exposed to is the norm to you.
Normal is subjective, I suppose.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to say.
Or no, I think in a sense your perception of normal is subjective, but normality is based on the majority, no?
The normality. What?
Yeah, the norm is based on majority. Okay, dude.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. Someone really wants to be unemployed.
Also, send me PC now.
You better hope China doesn't see this, man.
Yo, China doesn't see this.
Dude, I'm gonna have to
Talk
cut
about
out
big
so
pharma.
much.
Yeah.
Big pharma? Why?
Big
Oh
pharma.
no! Come on, dude. Stop.
I mean, I feel like their products are pretty good. I took some OxyContin myself for.
Oxycontin.
I was feeling
You took
some pains,
OxyContin?
obviously.
Okay,
No, I
come
haven't.
on, give me.
Okay, you want to get back on like the structure so that makes the video more complete, or do you just want to like whatever it?
I mean, I don't have like that much more like stuff.
Then we should
Nothing much
probably
more to
just
say.
skip to the second recommendation segment.
I don't
Okay.
know. It's just basically like usually. Well, in the previous episodes, like because I'm trying a new format, and I don't know if this is actually working. It's probably not. But so Adrian, you could start, I guess.
I would start with the film Truman Show. If no one has watched it, it fits in very well to the things that we have discussed in this podcast so far. It's a pretty lit movie. It actually made me think a lot about reality. It goes back to what we've discussed, and I think it's a pretty good movie to watch, both just to stay a little bit woke in an artistic manner. So yeah. Anyone else?
And any of you guys want to share yours?
Caleb can go
Any
first.
recommendation?
It's just a recommendation.
Big Dave
You can
wants
do.
to know what you recommend.
Big Brother.
China would like
Yeah,
to know your
Big
location.
Big Brother wants to know
Would like
what
to know your
recommend.
China would like to know your educational background.
Go ahead,
I don't
man.
know.
What's your recommendation?
I guess like anything by nature is pretty good. It's
Okay,
Yeah,
Sub,
viewers-
Sub,
We're better
go.
than you.
It's your turn.
I'm gonna recommend a CGP Grey video called Spaceship U Lockdown Productivity because it's pretty interesting and it applies to like the current quarantine situation everybody's kind of living in.
What did you say it's called again?
It's called Lockdown Productivity Spaceship U, and it's about like how you can keep yourself like motivated and running like a proper human being, like your mental and physical sides together, and like kind of be able to be like self-sustained without the pressures of society, which you don't have access to anymore. It's pretty interesting, and it's not a long video, so might as well just watch it.
CGP Grey.
I've watched it as well. It's a good video.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, we'll take a look.
So my recommendation is probably just anything from Veritasium. I don't know. I just really like. Ever since Mr. Fitz introduced us to the YouTube channel, I don't know. I watched a lot of the videos and it's actually very interesting. You know, the way he
Yes.
explains certain concepts or just physics in general. Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'd like to recommend
Recommend
Physics.
CS:GO.
Physics, yes.
Physics. He's not even public, dude. Most of the
It's
videos
not.
are private.
No, he's only for
It's
our
not,
school.
it's not.
You need a
No,
link
we
to
don't
see it
even
right
get to
now.
see most of his videos, dude.
Yeah,
It's like-
they're
it's like-
unlisted.
it's not- I don't know. Like when Mr. Fitz makes videos, it's not structured at all. It's very spontaneous. Like
But
he's
it's very
literally
good.
on the bus. when he makes them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There's
when he
like a
explains
charm
things, yeah.
There's a charm to
Very
unscripted
real.
things.
Yeah, real stuff.
Real facts.
Well, I guess that would be it for today. Even though it's very unstructured and very.
I mean, keep
Very
keep in mind that this is something new that we're trying. It's not necessarily what will be the future of our podcast. It's just something that we're experimenting with. So if it's not working well, sorry about that.
Like I.
Well, I mean, it was more structured before, but like, all right, it's fine.
I think generally with this topic, it's difficult to stay on topic. I guess.
Yeah,
That's-
possibly. It is. It is. It is.
So I guess we'll finish up now.
Yeah, sure.
Subscribe if you like the content. And
Don't forget to like that. Smash that button. Smash that subscribe button. Press that bell right now.
yeah. All right.
Thank you.